Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Tips and Tricks. I'm Debbie Nelson with Together SC, and I'm delighted that you're here. Tips and Tricks is a new idea that we have to share the expertise of our loyal consultants with you, our members. And so in each episode, we invite one of our consultants to join us and answer what we'll call a burning question, something that will benefit you. And today we're going to talk about a topic that I know all of you really want to hear the answer to, and that's about how to have engaging meetings. So what did we do? We went to our very dear friends at issaFacilitation to ask them to answer a question. So first, I want to introduce you to Chrissa Waite and Melissa Ladd of issaFacilitation. I'd love for them to say hello and just share a little bit about their company.
Thanks, Debbie. I'm Chrissa Waite, Melissa Ladd. Our business is issaFacilitation. We are certified professional facilitators that specialize in both virtual and in-person graphic facilitation.
Great. Well, that makes sense. And this question is going to be perfect for you. Facilitators like you that help with meetings use a lot of tools, those tips and tricks that we talk about. What are some of the tools that you use to create an environment which is really inclusive, both online, because we know that's so important now. We do those virtual meetings, and in person. So what are some of those tips and tricks?
Well, thanks, Debbie. That's what we're going to be sharing with you guys today, are tips that as facilitators, we use to create inclusive spaces for meetings. There's two sort of categories that we're going to be talking about. One is providing space, and another is setting agreements. So we'll start with providing space. As facilitators, we like to provide participants the way to provide objective input. Well, what do we mean by that? One of the things that Melissa and I like to do when we're working with groups is set out a whole bunch of images on a table or put them on a wall for people to react to. So you can choose an image that best reflects how you're feeling about a certain topic at that time. So use of images is an example of how to provide objective input. Another thing that we like to do is make sure that we're getting input from participants in a round-robin fashion. This is really important to ensure that you hear from everybody in the room or everybody in the online meeting. You can go down the participant list in an online meeting, making sure you hit each person, or just go around the table if you're in a room. But it's important to let people know that you're interested in hearing from all of them, and that's why you want to allow each person to take a turn to speak. The last way that you can provide space for people to have inclusive meetings is allow them to provide written input. This is a technique that we often use as facilitators. There may be folks in the room who prefer not to speak aloud in a group setting, or feel shy about it, or if you're in an online setting, maybe they have difficulty with their microphone or something like that. So you can provide them ways to give their input in a written form. If you're in a room, you can use sticky notes, index cards, even a worksheet. If you're in an online setting, you can use the chat, you can use worksheets, or a whiteboard. So those are three ways that you can provide space for each participant to contribute their input in an online or in-person setting.
Yeah, great, Chrissa. And the other technique, Debbie, that we really like to use are some tips around setting meeting agreements. So some people call these ground rules or even norms, team norms, but it really contributes to an inclusive environment right from the start of the meeting. And one key thing to do is to set these agreements. We'll give you some examples, and then make sure that the full group knows that, even tag a volunteer to do it, that they're there to encourage the group to remember the norms and to abide by them as the meeting is occurring, and catch them kind of when they forget. So one we like to start with is honoring multiple perspectives. Some of our Together SC clients have told us that this one is very effective. If the team agrees at the start of the meeting that whenever someone says something that's maybe different from your experience or is something you disagree with, that you'll say to yourself, how could that be true? How might that be true? Or what could I learn from this? Or how have I not heard this before? Right? It's just a trigger right at the beginning of the meeting to remind participants that we're all agreeing to honor multiple perspectives during the conversation. So that's one. Another example is one we've used with your membership and other nonprofits, which is to widen the frame. And this one, Debbie, means that the participants agree that anytime there are only two options being discussed to a particular decision, or only two ways of considering a problem, that someone in the room agrees to say, widen the frame. Hey, everybody, don't forget, widen the frame. There are usually more than two ways to look at something, and this is a good way to take a more inclusive approach to decision making. And the third example, meeting agreement, that can help create an inclusive environment, and all of these are applicable to online or in-person meetings, is to give voice to yourself and others. So when you set this agreement at the beginning of the meeting, participants are agreeing to, when they hear something someone in the meeting has said that they resonate with, that they will say that. They'll say right on in the chat, or they'll say, I agree. Just a quick way to point out that you resonate. That gives voice to the person who said it, and it also gives voice to others in the room that agree. And by recognizing other voices, it really helps to create a greater diversity of voices in the room, in the setting. So we suggest that your viewers, that our friends, Together SC nonprofit sector, are going to maybe consider some of these things the next time that you are looking to have a more inclusive meeting environment. Both tips to provide space for diversity of thought, and also to set some meeting agreements to adhere to.
Thank you so much. What a great response, and what great tips to use. I am such a visual learner, and even just the way the graphic representation of how you did the presentation just engages me. So I think that you're showing a tip right there, and how you're actually visually demonstrating the answer to this question, and just fantastic. And I want to thank you for all the facilitation you have done for Together SC. You've been at our summit, you've been at a lot of our board meetings, you've helped us a lot along the way. So thank you, Chrissa and Melissa. And we will provide information about how people could reach out. You'd be happy to answer questions, I'm assuming. And perhaps people might want to engage you in some facilitation for one of their upcoming meetings, and we certainly would encourage that. So this is it for today's tips and tricks. We look forward to seeing all of you next time, and thank you, issaFacilitation.